We need to remember that self-awareness isn't just about embracing positive virtues. We also need to acknowledge and confront our inner shadows. Welcome back to Journey of Self-Awareness, your YouTube channel for personal growth and self-exploration. Today we're going to turn a corner to the dark side, and instead of talking about all the positive virtues we can acquire, we're going to introduce a new series of videos all about the things we need to give up or overcome in order to make progress on our journey. In today's video, we're going to broadly discuss negative emotions, which the Tibetans think of as obstacles to awareness. Just as explorers face uncharted territory, it's essential for us to understand the inner challenges posed by negative emotions. We can think of them as shadows across our inner landscape. Ignoring them clouds our essence and halts our progress. Conversely, when we gain insight, we can transform negative emotions into catalysts for growth and declutter our minds. Negative emotions like anger, greed, jealousy, and fear are mental afflictions or defilements. We can also think of them as mental afflictions, so understanding them is crucial for a few key reasons. In addition to being part of what the Buddha called the three poisons, negative emotions are also deeply harmful and destructive. They're serious roadblocks to enlightenment, and they're also the root causes of suffering. So we'll all be better off if we learn to understand and manage them. Of course, suffering takes many forms, ranging from obvious pain to subtle frustrations, even irritation and general dissatisfaction. The Buddha taught that suffering is inherent in human existence. The three poisons, which are attachment or greed, aversion or anger, and ignorance or delusion, all greatly influence our thoughts, actions, and emotional reactions. They also perpetuate ego and feelings of dissatisfaction, insecurity, and suffering. Furthermore, such negative patterns become habits that obstruct our path and obscure our awareness of the true nature of reality, which lies within all of us. In upcoming videos, we'll further explore different negative emotional and mental challenges. We'll examine their sources, impact, and we'll discuss strategies for overcoming them. I can't stress enough how important it is for us to address and learn to manage mental obstructions. They block awareness and hinder our progress. We need to remember that self-awareness isn't just about embracing positive virtues. We also need to acknowledge and confront our inner shadows. By learning to handle our negative emotions, we can discover our authentic selves and free ourselves from suffering. We also need to understand negative and obstructive emotions because they profoundly impact individuals and the wider society. Unchecked, these emotions disrupt our inner balance and spread turmoil to those around us. Unmanaged anger, greed, jealousy, and fear not only harms our well-being and twists our perspectives, it damages our relationships. Anger, jealousy, greed, and fear all have harmful consequences if they're uncontrolled. For example, anger can lead to hurtful actions. Jealousy can erode our relationships and self-esteem, and greed can make us obsessively pursue more and more and more material possessions. Unmanaged fear can paralyze us and block our growth, all at the cost of our inner peace. Unchecked emotions breed suffering and disharmony both personally and in the community, and they can lead to hatred, widespread social conflict, and more. Destructive emotions can be extremely powerful. They can overwhelm a person and propel them to rage or revenge. Deep-seated emotions can warp people's perceptions and fuel irrational and unreasonable actions. They can even escalate to extreme violence, even against our loved ones. Uncontrolled jealousy or greed can trigger unthinkable actions, even leading to a loss of life, And history shows that unchecked emotions can even spiral into warfare and create massive social disruption, upheaval, and untold suffering. So we simply cannot afford to ignore our mental afflictions and emotional defilements because they can have such dire consequences. We must address them and learn to manage and eventually overcome them. It's also extremely important for us to understand the ego's role in amplifying and reinforcing destructive emotions. Of course, the ego is our socially constructed sense of a separate self that seeks to protect and defend itself. The ego often clings to negative emotions because, paradoxically, they strengthen the ego and bolster its sense of identity. Furthermore, the ego can strongly identify with negative emotions, claiming, for example, such things as, I am angry, it's who I am, it's part of me. So the ego often gives negative emotions even more significance and strength. In other words, the ego can link negative emotions to its very self-image, and such a strong identification with negative emotions magnifies their impact, granting them even greater control over the person's thoughts, behaviors, and experiences. In effect, egoic identification heightens our emotions by weaving them into our self-concept. This cycle fuels the ego, further stoking these emotions. When slighted or criticized, for example, the ego will often react with anger, but it can also self-righteously cling to that anger. The anger can seem fully justified, even honorable, which deepens the attachment. This perpetuates a cycle where anger can become a persistent part of our identity. Moreover, unless we're vigilant and self-aware, we may be completely oblivious to these reactive emotional cycles, taking them for granted or accepting them as perfectly normal. In other words, egotism and self-centeredness strengthens desires, fears, and judgments within us. The ego, which is rooted in childhood, can embed negative emotions and mental states into our identity so they become a regular part of our thinking and go completely unnoticed. Viewing the world through an ego-centered lens distorts our perception of reality and shapes our reactions. But understanding how the ego uses negative emotions will help us realize the taken for granted and hidden aspects of our experiences. It will also help us understand the very nature of suffering. The ego's desire for control and validation can cause us to tightly hold on to certain things, people, or experiences that we believe will bring us happiness, even things like social status. When we're attached to something, believing it's essential for our happiness, we become afraid of losing it, and this fear can lead to anxiety, anger, and sadness. When these things are not obtained or lost, we'll feel bad. On the other hand, aversions arise when we push away or reject experiences that we believe will bring us discomfort or pain, and this can also lead to suffering. When we're averse to something, we're afraid of experiencing it, and this can also lead to negative emotions such as anger, anxiety, and sadness. Both attachment and aversion are based on the illusion of separation. When we believe we're separate from the world, we see things as either good or bad, desirable or undesirable. We want to hold on to the things that we believe are good and avoid the things that we believe are bad, but this maintains a perpetual cycle of dissatisfaction and suffering. We become bound to a constant pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. We may feel happy when we get something we want, but the happiness doesn't last because everything is constantly changing. For example, we might feel elated when we get a new car, but soon enough it gets damaged or breaks down. So constantly pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain prevents us from finding lasting inner contentment and freedom from the fluctuations and ups and downs of daily life. By recognizing the sources of suffering rooted in the ego, we start to untangle the threads that keep us trapped in negativity. This insight frees us from being emotionally controlled, giving us power to choose a different path. Self-reflection is incredibly important in this process. It helps break down the belief that negative mental states are fixed and unchangeable. It's critical for us to understand the impermanent nature of emotions. Just as they arise, negative emotions also subside, coming and going like water under a bridge. Clinging to our emotions or viewing them as a permanent facet of our being fosters misconceptions that only protract our suffering. When we let go of attachments and aversion, we can experience the world as it is without judgment. We can see that everything we might cling to or avoid is transient and impermanent. This doesn't mean we shouldn't have preferences or enjoy the things we have or avoid the things we don't like. However, it does mean that we shouldn't cling to them or let them control our lives. When we let go of attachment and aversion, we can experience a freedom and peace that we've never known before. We can live our lives without fear or anxiety, and we can enjoy each moment as it comes. Instead of taking them for granted, we must recognize and examine our emotional reactions, even after the fact. Through self-reflection, we can examine our emotions more clearly, and greater awareness can reveal negative emotional patterns that have been operating beneath the surface, sometimes for our entire lives. This empowers us to disentangle emotions from our identity. We can realize that emotions don't have to define us. They can be recognized, understood, and transformed. So self-reflection can serve as a compass, steering us away from impulsive emotional reactions and suffering toward conscious choices about how we respond to situations. This allows us to make better choices. Self-reflection is key for managing negative emotions. In fact, we need to use every tool at our disposal, including mindfulness, compassion, and ethical living. With mindfulness, we can observe our emotions without feeling overwhelmed, much like stepping back from a painting to grasp its entirety. Mindfulness helps us understand our thoughts and feelings without passing judgment. And with mindfulness and greater awareness, we can avoid impulsive reactions by witnessing negative emotions as they arise without immediately reacting. Nurturing compassion both for ourselves and others is also important. It can serve as a potent countermeasure to negative emotions, and compassion also softens the heart and weakens the egoic grip of anger, hatred, or jealousy. By nurturing compassion, we dissolve the barriers that these emotions erect. Kindness and patience are also extremely helpful for managing harmful emotions. Kindness counters many negative emotions, and it helps us understand others better, while patience calms us when we are on the verge of acting negatively. And acting ethically and doing the right thing helps us stay on track by reminding us to be mindful and not let our ego control us. All these positive virtues work together to help us manage our negative emotional reactions. Think of it like taking care of a garden or helping the good things grow while getting rid of the weeds. Ultimately, negative emotions serve as obstacles to enlightenment. By comprehending, taming, and reshaping them, we pave the road to liberation and contribute to the awakening of all beings. On our journey of self-awareness and growth, mindfulness and compassion guide our path. Identifying negative emotional reactions, grasping their ego-driven roots, and managing them through self-reflection are vital steps. Addressing negative emotions doesn't mean suppressing them. It's about comprehending their origins and impact. Understanding that everything is impermanent also helps us develop wisdom and compassion, which in turn helps us overcome our negative emotions and realize liberation from suffering. This also helps us cultivate qualities like love, compassion, and joy. Overcoming negative emotions is a crucial part of our spiritual journey, leading us to awakening, where suffering is transcended and our true potential is realized. This awakening ripples outward, impacting our surroundings and society and the wider world. In upcoming videos, we'll further explore various negative emotions, providing practical strategies for effectively managing and overcoming them. So please stay tuned and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on our next video all about the social and cultural sources of the egoic self. So thanks for watching. Please be sure to tell your friends about us. And don't forget to check out the in-depth articles I've been posting on our website at josaonline.com. Until next time, please take good care and remain present and mindful.